Have you ever had an irrational fear once? Let me know in the comments. Now, as a kid, I had an irrational fear of toilets. I used to think that they would jump out of the wall and run at me and eating me alive. So this story starts off as me sometime in first grade, whenever I had received a book, and it was called Captain Underpants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets. But anyways, the author of it is Dave Pilkey, and he gave me nightmares. Thank you, Dave Pilkey. You gave me nightmares. Okay, anyways, as a kid, I was just learning to read in first grade, so like I could at least discern what a picture was, and that's literally why I would read his books, because I couldn't read very well, and I just liked looking at the pictures, you know. As bored as I was, Dave Pilkey, you kind of saved me on that one. I was bored. You kind of cured my boredom for the sake at least. But you also gave me an irrational fear in a way. This fear started from that one book, because the toilets, they came alive. They had razor sharp teeth that could jump off wherever they were connected to, and they would just eat the people in the book. So that was like a new reality to me, because when you're a kid, you think almost everything is real, and you don't necessarily believe in lies. Everything seems all real to you. I don't know how to explain it, but that's just how it feels like when you are young. Like really, like when when you're like 7-year-old mind or something is like developing. All right. So I didn't have a conscience of, oh hey, no, this is not real. This is fiction. I couldn't discern reality. And so this was a new fear unlocked. And so every time I would go to the bathroom after that one book that I had read, just seeing the images of it, I was afraid. I didn't want to use the bathroom at school because they were loud, and I was afraid the toilet or urinal or whatever was going to jump out and get me, you know? It felt like it was gonna get me because it was loud. But the toilets at home, of course, I already knew how safe they were, because they weren't possessed and they wouldn't go after me. You know, I knew that was a reality check. I knew that the toilets at home wouldn't get me, but the toilets at school, man, I was afraid of them. It's crazy that sounds. I really thought it was true, like, because the reason I thought of it like that is because in the book, only the toilets at school seemed to attack the people at that school, and so it didn't say anything about the toilets at home. So I felt I was safe whenever I would go potty at home, you know, as a little kid. And so that's why I had bathroom trouble. Even my parents knew I was afraid of the toilets, but I didn't let anyone else know but my family. But I don't think they knew that that's where it came from. They just knew I hated it because of the loud noise, but they didn't know the other story. I actually recently told my dad that it was due to the book and the loud noise. Those kind of psychologically messed with me as a kid, so I don't know how I feel on that one. Um, I'm still very hesitant around toilets today. I'm not like afraid of them, but I just like, the fear is still kind of there. It's like barely there. It's hanging on by a thread, if that makes sense. Don't go out and say, "Oh, Woodman, oh, Jacob, he's afraid of toilets still." No, it's only like 0.1% because I jump from the sound. I don't know. I had sensitive ears back then, and I still do now. So I'm not trying to admit that I'm afraid of toilets now. No, not completely. Oh crap! Now at this point, you're gonna accuse me. You're gonna say, "Oh, he's admitting he's still afraid of the toilets. He's an 11th grader. He's 17 years old. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness, Woodman, you're afraid of toilets." I don't want some 12-year-old calling me out for that. But man, people do get irrational fears. All right, like that is a real thing. I also had a fear of spiders. I mean, that's a common one, I think, to say the least. They're still scary to me, but just not as scary as they used to be. I used to go, "Wah!" You know, I used to go crazy whenever I'd see either a spider or a bug, especially a bug. Oh yeah, I got more stories on that one. If you want to listen to that. But yeah, I want to hear from your irrational fears if you got any, and maybe that'll spark interest in me. Okay, anyways, yeah, but the spider thing and the bug thing, that was more of a rational fear in some way, but I think I was also, as a kid, I was also afraid of bugs a lot, almost the same, because whenever a horsefly or a bug would buzz me, I'll go, what? And I would run full on open like 20 mile an hour. Well, maybe not 20 mile an hour, but I would run at top speed just to get inside the house. I remember this one time I was out in the woods, right, and with my dad, and we were hunting, all right? So we sat down on this tree log and we were hunting for deer, and there was a spider or bug or whatever got on the tree or something, and then it was buzzing me, and I went, "Wah!" You know, I yelled at the top of my lungs, and my dad thought something was wrong. He was like, "Jake, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "A bug," and I'm like crying. And my dad said, "Well, the hunt's off." And I was like, "Oh," and I felt really bad because I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle nature. I couldn't handle the outdoors. I I had some sort of weird fear of bugs as well. Like it was almost as equal. I would say at this point, yeah, I think it was about as equal as toilets. All right, but it's just I was more of afraid of it than I should have been. To this day, bugs, they kind of scare me. It's just not as much. I don't react as crazy as I once did, though, because whenever I was little, I would run, full out burst running. Same thing when it comes to the toilet thing, all right? Whenever I would have to do my business, I would run over to I would flush the toilet and I'd run over to the sink and wash my hands and get out of there, you know. And that really caused a suspicion between other people. They're like, "Why are you running? Are you afraid of it?" And I tried to hide that by lying and saying, "No, it's just a sound. It's too loud." And so that kind of masked what I used to be afraid of. I think as you grow older, you get afraid of things less. But to be honest, like, if you were to ask me, am I afraid of toilets? Am I afraid of bugs? I would generally say no because I'm not as afraid of it as I used to be. But there's still that 1% though. Oh my goodness, Woodman is still afraid of toilets and bugs. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, anyways, whatever you're afraid of, I'm sure someone is afraid of something, right? We all have our own fears. All right. Fear of judgment. Oh yeah, that's a big one. Oh, I forget. I almost forgot to talk about this on this channel. I have a big fear of judgment, and I don't really like talking about it. And this is the time I'm actually open. I've opened my ADHD mind and just decided I just want to talk about fear of judgment because that's who I am. um, I'm afraid that people won't like me, but that's not a rational thing to think because I did learn something. All right, I learned something at school the other day or so when I had a bunch of group of people that were judging me for stuff like but it was only a small group of people. So it didn't really matter, all right? But then now when it comes to YouTube, it seems like it matters, but does it really matter that only a few people might hate me for so-and-so or whatever, all right? Those are just the people, those are the haters, all right? Or those are just the people that just are just a disappointment to me, I guess. They just don't want to associate, all right? But then you got billions of other people in the world that might actually care. You just never know, I think, to be honest. Uh, so I think that was an interesting note that I'm going to leave it off on. I just want to know your irrational fears or rational fears.